100 miles to the sea, to the freeway lately.
Good morning. Today we're doing something I've been procrastinating for like half a year, and that something is this here. This is a shoebox that is full of all kinds of needles, mainly knitting needles, some crochet hooks, and I got this from my grandma about half a year ago because she used to knit and crochet quite a lot and she can't anymore, so she gave all of her supplies to me, which was very nice, and ever since then I've been fishing all of my needles out of this box, which is not optimal because it takes away a lot of space and it doesn't look very pretty and it's impossible to find anything in there. So I've really been wanting to make a case for my circular needles at least. There's some other things in there. As I said, there are some crochet hooks. I do have a plan for them, but we're gonna ignore those for today. And then there are some of these, I don't even know how they're called, old-timey knitting needles that are like a double-pointed needle, but they have a stopper in the end. I don't really know what I would even use those for. I think I maybe might hang some pictures with them at some point in my life. I don't know. I thought I could like attach this at the top of maybe a piece of paper or even like a tapestry that I knit or crochet, and then I could attach this at the bottom and then I could maybe hang it with a string. That would look cool and be like a cool way to still use those. But I don't really need them in my needles case, so they're gonna stay here for now. But all of these circular needles that make this big mess in here, they're gonna have to find a place to stay. So for the case I want to make, I browsed the internet for some options of what these cases usually look like. And for the circular needles, they all seem to follow the same kind of pattern, where it's just a big rectangle with pouches on the inside, and then the needles are in the pouches, and you can roll it up and tie it together. So you have a big roll in the end with all of your needles inside. And I want to do something relatively similar. Ideally, in my mind, the pouches inside aren't stacked on top of each other like they usually are in these needle cases, just because in the examples I've seen, they only ever put one needle into one pouch, and I have quite a bunch of needles and also a bunch that are the same size. So ideally I would just put the same size ones in the same pouch, and then I don't want the pouches to be on top of each other because then it's just gonna get very thick and bulky. So if everything works to plan, I'm gonna put the pouches like over one another, where there's one row of pouches and then there's another row of pouches and another row of pouches without them overlapping. But the problem is that I don't have a ton of yarn. I'm gonna use yarns for my stash just because this is not a huge project. I do want it to look nice, but if it looks nicer than the shoebox, that's good enough. And I don't really mind using some of the acrylic yarns I have laying around for this, just because it's not a garment. So I think they would be perfectly suitable for this project, also because they're relatively lightweight. So I have 2 balls of this, which is a yarn that is also from my grandma, and that was part of a set to make a hat. And as I said, this is acrylic, and also I really didn't like the other color that came in the set. So this has been laying around, and I think this might be close to enough to make a rectangle big enough for my pouches. And I'm gonna hold it with this, which is also an acrylic yarn that I don't have a label for anymore. And I think if I put them together, this should be enough to be held together with both of these balls, and it should make a dense enough fabric so that the needle case won't like flop around, and still probably make a rectangle big enough. And then for the inside, for the pouches, I have some options. I have a blue yarn I might use, and I also have some colorful little mini skeins that I think might be fun to use for the inside to make it all colorful. But I don't really know yet. I think I'm gonna do the rectangle first, and then I'm gonna plan out my pouches. I do have somewhat of an idea how big they should be, and I think the ideal size for them would be 12 by 16 centimeters. Just because I feel like all of my needles I can roll up in a way that they would fit into a space like that. However, I'm gonna knit my rectangle first, see how big I can get that, and then I'm gonna plan from there. This is just supposed to be a very quick whip it up in one day project, have a quick success, get rid of some stash yarn that I wouldn't otherwise use, solve a little problem I have. I think these two together would look kind of cool, kind of like a, I don't know, a snowstorm or something maybe. Yeah, so let's go, let's make a big rectangle.
100 miles to the sea, to the freeway lately. Hard to smile when I'm with me, when I'm with me lately.
Okay, so I'm done with my rectangle, and this is all I could get out of both of the yarn cells together. This is what it looks like. I think it's kind of cool, and I'm very glad I could use up some of my stash yarn, and it actually fit pretty much perfectly. I did a long tail cast on, and I had a bit of yarn left over at the start here. I just tie that in a little bow and I leave it there in case I run out of yarn and I need to use these, I don't know, 20-30 centimeters that I sometimes have left over there. So I left that there, and then I knitted, and I used both of my balls of the white yarn and the one ball of the grey yarn that I had. And neither of them, I mean, the grey yarn didn't have a label and the white yarn didn't have any information on it, so neither of them I knew a length of or how much I really had. And both of them ended, I think, about here. Yes, this is the ends. So they were pretty much the same length, which is insane how well that matched up. And yeah, so I was like halfway done casting off up here. I had that much done. So then I cut off my end that I had from the long tail cast on, and I got until here. And then I still had these stitches left, and then I thought, okay, should I really like go back and cast off a row earlier? But it's kind of pointless. And I went into my stash and I found this. This is, I think, drops Nepal, if I'm not mistaken, that I used to make a hat about a year ago. And I have a purple of it too, but I had this white and this grey that matched up really, really well. So I took a tiny bit of the drops Nepal and I cast off the last few stitches. And I mean, the grey is slightly lighter, but you're barely able to tell, and I don't think you'll really see this edge anyways. So now I have this rectangle, and I think it's about 51 centimeters long and about 38 centimeters high. So my ideal measurement for the pouches inside was 12 by 16, which is not going to really work out if I don't want the pouches to be stacked on top of each other. So I think I'm just going to do 12.5 by 12.5 pouches. That should use up the space on this pretty well, and I'm going to attach them to the backside, obviously. And then the needles will have to fit in there somehow. I think it won't really be a problem. They're going to adjust to the space that they have. And finally be out of my shoebox. So for the pouches I obviously can't use the same yarn since I used it all up for the outside, and I thought I might make it like fun and colorful inside and use up all of these little mini skeins that I still have laying around. This is the first yarn I ever purchased when I started crocheting. I just bought a set of crochet hooks and this yarn from Amazon, and I made my first tries on this very squeaky, very acrylic yarn. This is not my first try, but this is what I did right after I learned all of the stitches still in here. And they are like, I don't know what to use them for. I think I used some to make a hat that I actually really liked a while ago. I don't know where that went. Where did it go? Yeah, but I don't really know what to use them for. Other than that, I was like considering making a garland with them at some point, but I don't really like, it would just be to use up this yarn. I don't really want a garland, so I think they would probably be put to better use in here. So I'm gonna make my little pouches out of this, and I'm just gonna use a different color for each of them. I don't really know how I'm gonna align them yet, if I'm gonna like sort them by color and kind of make it a gradient, or if I'm just gonna put them all over the place, but I think it would be kind of cool. And yeah, then at least I can differentiate between my pouches, and I know maybe in the red one that's where my 3mm needles are or something like that. So now I just need to make a tiny gauge swatch to figure out how many stitches I need for 12.5 centimeters. And yeah, then it's a go time. I think it will be pretty fun to knit up just because the pouches aren't that big and I can use all these different colors, so there's a lot of variation.
To the campfires, to the free laughter lately, and hard to smile when I'm with me, alone with me, way too deep. Yes, I can feel so damn weak you on my mind.
It is a day later and I finished all of my little squares. I followed the same sort of construction with all of them, where I cast on and then I did 2 rows in garter stitch, and I did also 2 stitches of garter stitch on each side, and then I did 2 rows of garter stitch up here in hopes that it wouldn't curl as much. I can't say it helped a ton with all of them. I don't know, some are worse than others, but I'm gonna stitch them down on 3 sides anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but I think it looks a little more clean than if they're just stockinette. Kind of gives them a little bit of an edge. I also did some striped ones like this one or this one, just because I had so many like scraps left over that wouldn't make a whole another square, but I didn't want to have them laying around now, so I didn't want to throw them away. And then I thought, why not use up the colors that I'm already using in this and make it look a little more put together. So I came up with a bit of a pattern to align them on the big rectangle. It makes it look like a little more put together. I think I have 3 colors that I have 2 of each, and then I have some random ones, and then the striped ones I did with the colors I already used in that rows. And for seaming, I think I'm gonna use this. I also don't know what this is. This is really like a big using up my stash yarn project. But I have a bunch of acrylic yarn that I bought when I started crocheting. I didn't really know about fiber compositions and things like that, so I just bought random stuff, and I never want to get rid of the yarn, but I'm not really using it for garments at least, so it's just laying around until I find a random little project like this one to use it up on. So this, I guess, does have some acrylic in it, maybe some cotton. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's grey and it matches the grey that I used in the outside rectangle quite well. So I think I'm gonna go with this one. Pin down the squares with some stitch markers first, just because they're all like rolling up and I want to make sure everything's aligned perfectly before I attach anything and then run out of space. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna use this for seaming. I think I could do vertical invisible seam maybe, and then just pick up some of the fabric from the outside rectangle on my way back up. So I think I'm gonna try to do that, and then I can just seam together the edges. And well, it's gonna be a lot of seaming. I already did a project last week that was a lot of seaming. I don't know, I'm getting used to it though. It's kind of meditative. And yeah, now it's basically just sewing a bunch of little squares onto a big rectangle.
Just one more time. Just one more time. Hard miles to the campfires, to the free laughter lately, and hard to smile when I'm with me, alone with me, way too deep.
It's relatively late already. It's already getting kind of dark, but it's also grey outside, so I don't know. But I've been watching the European Championships soccer final and done a lot of seaming, and this is what I ended up with. So that's the state of my little needle case right now. It definitely has a bunch of pouches. I decided to line them up from the bottom, so these the lowest row is like right where the like big rectangle started, and then I didn't leave too much space in between the rows just because I wanted some extra space up here, just because I know that the needles are gonna stick out over the pouches and I don't want them to stick out of the case in the end. So I wanted to leave some space up here, and now all I need to do is some finishings. I want to go like all of the edges on the side and on the bottom where the pouches are. I kind of sewed them down on the inside because the other side is like stockinette, so they were kind of rolling a little bit and not looking too clean, so I want to sew down the top edge as well. And I obviously need to add a closure mechanism, so I'm gonna knit some I-cord and make some ties for this. And then I'm already done. I can already fill my little needle case. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this, and definitely let me know in the comments what you do with your needles, especially your circular needles, how you keep them, and I will see you next time.
And hard to smile when I'm with me, alone with me, way too deep. 'Cause I can feel so damn weak. to the freeway lately. Hard to smile when I'm with me. When I'm with me lately. 'Cause I can feel so damn